South Korea's daily COVID-19 tally continues to double compared to a week ago. The country also confirms its first case of the heavily mutated Centaurus variant. US producer prices in June jumped 11% on year, which is far more than expected, with wholesale prices going up on top of an earlier report on record high inflation. There's greater concern that prices for households will stay elevated for longer. Ukraine condemns Russia for striking its central city of Vinnytsia on Thursday, in what Kyiv calls a war crime against the peaceful city. The missile strike killed at least 23 people, including 3 children, and injured over 90 people.
Good morning. Welcome to New Day at Arirang. We begin with COVID-19 this morning, with South Korea having confirmed over 37,000 new cases already as of 9 p.m. Thursday. This is double the number from the same time a week ago.
And with the number of reported infections on the rise, there's more alarming news for health authorities. The country confirmed its first case of Centaurus, a strain that has mutated to escape antibodies from vaccines or infection. Chung Eun-ju starts us off.
South Korea's new cases of COVID-19 have more than doubled in the space of a week, amid the spread of the highly contagious Omicron subvariant BA.5. The nation on Thursday confirmed its first case of the Centaurus subvariant, also known as BA.275. According to the KDCA, the first case is a man in his 60s living in the city of Incheon. This person has no overseas travel history and will quarantine for 7 days like others infected with COVID-19. Authorities are conducting investigations to confirm the route of infection and said that it is likely that the virus has already spread within the local community. The Centaurus subvariant was first detected in India in early May and has since spread to more than 10 countries. The BA.275 variant is known to have accumulated enough mutations to evade antibodies formed by vaccines or prior infections. The uptick is attributed to the BA.5 mutation that escapes immunity and which already accounts for 40% of confirmed cases in the Seoul metropolitan area. If the current surge continues, experts calculate that South Korea will confirm around 100,000 new cases by next week and could even lock 300,000 per day in around 4 weeks from now if the basic reproduction number increases by 30%. As a preemptive measure, the government said it will secure an additional 1,400 hospital beds for people who are critically ill. Meanwhile, as BA.5 becomes the dominant strain worldwide, the World Health Organization has warned that the pandemic is nowhere near over.
New waves of the virus demonstrate again that the COVID-19 is nowhere near over. As the virus pushes at us, we must push back.
CNN calls BA.5 the worst variant yet. The White House said U.S. President Joe Biden would minimize contact during his first trip to the Middle East. Chung Eun-ju, Arirang News.
With the US economy hit hard by inflation, wholesale prices in the country have climbed to a near record level last month. The US Labor Department reported Thursday that the US Producer Price Index, a measure of price changes before goods are sold to a consumer, rose 11.3% in June from a year ago. The figure is close to the record 11.6% recorded in March, following the outbreak of war in Ukraine. Data shows that almost 90% of the rise came from a 10% increase in energy costs amid surging oil and natural gas prices. This comes just a day after the government reported a 9.1% surge in Consumer Price Index, the biggest since 1981. Soaring oil prices drove South Korea's import price index to a new record high in June, increasing for a second straight month. The Bank of Korea reported Friday that the overall import price index for last month stood at 154.84, up 0.5% from May. Compared to a year earlier, import prices have risen nearly 34%, showing on-year increases for 16 straight months. The central bank attributed the surge to historic highs in global energy prices, with the price of Dubai crude, Korea's benchmark, rising around 58% on year. Export prices also rose compared to the year before. Export prices were up about 24% in June, led by petroleum and chemical products. At a weekly economy meeting, President Yoon Suk-yeol emphasised the need to protect households and businesses from excessive debt burdens. The government unveiled measures to help select vulnerable groups, including longer loan terms. Our Yoon Jung-min shares with us what was discussed.
South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol vowed to implement policy measures aimed at easing the debt burden on those in the low-income bracket and young people at a time of increasing interest rates.
금리 인상은 물가 상승을 억제하기 위한 불가피한 조치이지만 그 부담이 고스란히 취약계층과 사회적 약자에게 전가돼서는 안 될 것입니다.
The remarks came at his weekly meeting on the economy, the second of its kind, held a day after the nation's central bank raised the policy interest rate by 0.5 percentage point to fight inflation, marking the biggest single rate hike on record. Since August last year, the Bank of Korea has raised its benchmark rate to 2.25% from a record low of 0.5% in order to dampen an inflation rate which last month quickened to its highest since the late 90s. Government measures announced on Thursday include extending maturity or reducing interest rates for small business owners, shifting to lower rates for a certain group of borrowers, creating a special program for young borrowers, and lowering borrowing rates for home buyers.
서민 경제가 무너지면 국가 경제의 기본이 무너지는 것입니다. 고물가, 고금리의 부담이 서민과 취약계층에 전가되지 않도록 관계 기관은 각별히 신경 써 주실 것을 당부드립니다.
During the president's meeting with top government officials, the Financial Services Commission reported that it would expand a program to help low-income borrowers switch adjustable-rate mortgage loans to fixed-rate loans at affordable rates. Data from FSC show households in South Korea had over $1.4 trillion of debt at the end of 2021, equivalent to about 90% of the nation's GDP. It also shows adjustable rate loans accounted for 46% of the debt. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
The government is discussing ways to strengthen cooperation on semiconductors with the U.S. A presidential official said Washington has highlighted the importance of the tech partnership in its June White House report on building resilient supply chains, but no specific plans or a time frame has been unveiled yet. According to Yonhap News, the U.S. asked Seoul inform Washington by the end of August whether it plans to take part in a U.S.-led semiconductor alliance known as the Chip 4. Japan and Taiwan may also be involved. Seoul and Beijing emphasized that trade volume between the two countries hit a new high last year, despite the prolonged COVID-19 pandemic during annual bilateral working-level economic talks. Lee Mi-yeon, South Korean Foreign Ministry's Director General for Bilateral Economic Affairs, and Yang Wei-chun, Director General for Asian Affairs at China's Commerce Ministry, spoke via video link on Thursday. They also agreed that the Asian neighbors need to strengthen cooperation to establish a stable supply chain network. The two countries also discussed holding vice minister-level economic talks sometime in the latter half of this year. A government task force formed to mend Seoul's diplomatic row with Tokyo over wartime forced labor compensation met for the second time on Thursday. Among items discussed is the possibility of negotiating with Japan to invoke a diplomatic solution for victims if necessary. Also, according to reports, Seoul's top diplomat Park Jin, during his visit to Japan next week, could discuss this topic with his Japanese counterpart. Kim Da-mi explains further.
South Korea says it's willing to negotiate with Japan on invoking the diplomatic protection requested by Korean victims of Japan's wartime forced labor, even though it would not meet the legal requirements. Diplomatic protection is when a state acts on behalf of its citizens when their rights have been violated by another state. An official from Seoul's Foreign Ministry explained that the issue is a civil lawsuit against the actions of a number of firms, not the state. This came after the second meeting of the new joint consultative body organized by South Korea took place on Thursday to find a solution. The subrogation payment was also high on the agenda of Thursday's talks. That's when the South Korean government pays the victims and then asks the Japanese companies for reimbursement later.
We explained to the South Korean government that the Japanese firm's participation is essential in at least collecting the funds for the subrogation.
The victim side also stressed that the related firms, namely Mitsubishi Heavy Industries and Nippon Steel Corporation, must apologize to the victims, while the Japanese government should also apologize.
We have asked the South Korean government to explain to the Japanese government that this is an opportunity for Japan to resolve the prolonged matter too.
Japan's NHK News reported the same day that Seoul's top diplomat Park Jin is set to visit Japan on Monday, where he could discuss the wartime forced labor issue with his counterpart Yoshimasa Hayashi during his 4-day trip there. The South Korean task force plans to hold more meetings on the issue before the liquidation of the Japanese company's assets actually takes place. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
Now it's time for On Point, where we speak to experts to delve deeper into some of the key issues in the spotlight right now. After a 3-year break due to COVID-19, the Boryeong Mud Festival is set to kick off tomorrow. And for those not familiar with the festival, it's not a stretch to say that it's one of the biggest summer festivals here in South Korea.
And since it's coming back after 3 years, the festival is set to be bigger and supposedly longer than ever before, filled with activities and things to see. To give us more info, we have Park Min-ji from the festival's organizing committee with us. Good morning.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome. Well, to begin, for those who have not heard about this festival, what kind of history does this festival have, and why is it mud?
This year marks the 25th year of the Mud Festival. Back in the 1998, the mayor of Boryeong City at the time thought of the ways to revitalize Boryeong's economy and tourism industry. With the idea of mud cosmetic products, a new concept of mud spa and therapy or massage that covers the whole body in mud was introduced to the tourists. So it was such a breath of fresh air and attraction to many people, eventually becoming a foundation for the modern mud festival. So recently, the Boryeong Mud Festival was selected as one of Asia's top 3 major festivals by the International Festivals and Event Association, and has become one of the largest summer festivals in the world. So regardless of nationality, race, language, or age, it is a hands-on festival everyone can enjoy, and beauty shows through because of the mud's healing effects, minerals, and enjoyment of all the activities.
And well, it's very much an international event, as you mentioned. People, regardless of nationality, age, they all love to just gather in the city of Boryeong, and they, just revel in all the mud really and all its perks and benefits, right? And well,
right.
What kind of events are they going to be able to look forward to within the festival?
Because the comeback has to be pretty grand, so this exhibition will be held from July 16th to August 15th. And this year is very special because not only are we hosting the Mud Festival, but we will also host the very first Boryeong Sea Mud exhibition. So along with all the fun and exciting Mud Festival activities, under the theme of rediscovery of the ocean and future value of mud, there are 7 exhibition halls relating to leisure and tourism, sea mud industry, local products, wellness, mud therapies, and hands-on experiences, etc. And then we have conferences, seminars, K-pop concerts, and beachfront contests and performances, and yacht championships are taking place as well.
Right, and it sounds like a whole lot of fun, but before people want to make their plans, I think we need some information on how to make reservations, maybe buy tickets. Could you give us more details on that?
Yeah, sure. Actually, today is the last day that you can get 20% discount on the tickets. You can pre-book the tickets through Interpark ticket website or Nonghyup Banks in Chungnam region or our organizing committee office in Boryeong for 9,000 won for adults, 7,000 won for teenagers, and 5,000 won for children. And starting tomorrow, the 16th of July, the ticket price will go up and it'll be 12,000 won for adults, 9,000 for teenagers, and 6,000 for children. So once you reserve the ticket, you can come anytime between July 16th to August 15th.
Right, so you really want to take advantage of that early bird perk by today. And for visitors who are headed to the city of Boryeong and who really want to make a weekend out of this, what other sightseeing events or other major occasions or festivals would you recommend in the area?
So Boryeong, I would say Boryeong has a lot to offer. This year has been declared and certified as by Chungnam Province as Visit Boryeong year to promote 2022 Boryeong Sea Mud Exhibition and the opening of the Boryeong Undersea Tunnel. There are 9 scenic spots strongly recommended in Boryeong. Daecheon Beach is one of them, of course. There's Jukdo Island, which is known as a bamboo island, Seongju Mountain Recreational Forest, Gaehwa Art Park, known as Herbland, and Muchangpo Beach, where you can experience the isthmus, and Waeyeondo Island, Chungcheong Suyongseong Fortress, and Coal Mine Museum, and Boryeong-ho Lake as well. So you guys should come visit Boryeong.
Well, we're all psyched to hear about this, and since it's about a month in length, there's plenty of time to go and have fun for us. Well, thank you for joining us. We look forward to speaking to you again.
Okay, thank you.
And that wraps up the first half of New Day at Arirang, but stick around. Coming up in the second half,
we'll be discussing the historic Squid Game Emmy nominations and the significance of the 14 titles that the drama's up for, which include Outstanding Drama Series, marking a first for a non-English language show. So stay tuned with Arirang News.
Share South Korea's experience in tackling COVID-19 and introduce a Korean new Korean survivor of Japan's wartime slavery met with
extraordinary climate crisis and pledged to work with the EU to tackle the challenge.
The objective of its North Korea policy is
protesters gathering across the country to peacefully demand an end to hate and violence.
Arirang, what matters?
넌 볼 수 없고 가질 수 없어 뚝뚝 눈물 쏟아내도 뜨거운 자태 한번 비추지 않고 내게만 가치란 그녀는 유명한 서울의 별다 어딨나 In your eyes 걔와 함께면 넌 디스토피아 내 발걸음 따라오면 유토피아 나의
I feel so good right now. Maybe I had a drink or two, but this somehow feels like it's forever. All my friends are here having fun and feeling good right now.
Welcome back to the second half of New Day at Arirang. We now turn to the war in Ukraine.
Russian missiles have struck a normally quiet city far from the heart of the fighting in the Donbas region. Latest reports say that at least 23 people have been killed, including 3 children. Kim Yo-san has the details.
Russia has fired missiles targeting a Ukrainian city far from the eastern front line, killing nearly 24 people and wounding many others. A number of children were among the dead.
Today, in the morning, Russian missiles hit the city of Vinnytsia, an ordinary peaceful city. Cruise missiles hit 2 community facilities. Houses were destroyed. A medical center was destroyed. Cars and trams were on fire. This is an act of Russian terror.
Local authorities say the missiles struck civilian buildings in the west-central Ukrainian city on Thursday morning. They note the missiles first hit the car park of a 9-story building, adding that residential buildings were hit a little later. Following the strike, a Ukrainian Air Force spokesperson said that the city had been hit by 3 Russian-caliber cruise missiles fired from a submarine. Authorities added that the Ukrainian forces had shot down 2 other missiles. The Russian Defense Ministry, which denies targeting civilians, has yet to comment on the strike. Kim Yo-san, Arirang News.
Seoul and Washington staged the first joint air drills involving F-35A stealth fighters. The training was designed to boost combined operational capability by having pilots from the two coordinate tactics and flight skills. Bae Eun-ji provides a closer look.
A South Korean F-35A stealth fighter roars into the air at an airbase in Cheongju to take part in joint air drills with F-35As from the U.S. On Thursday, the last day of the 4-day combined exercise, the South Korean Air Force said this is the first time the allies have held a joint drill using F-35As from both countries. The training involved a total of around 30 warplanes and also included South Korea's F-15Ks, KF-16s, and F-A-50s, as well as F-16s from the U.S.
This training is very important as a symbol of our strong alliance and joint defense readiness. Pilots will be sharing tactics and skills needed for this 5th-generation jet.
Last Tuesday, 6 American F-35A stealth fighters from Eielson Air Force Base in Alaska arrived in South Korea for this drill. This was the first time in more than 4 years that they were publicly deployed here. A U.S. Air Force F-35A pilot also said the training is aimed at showing the two countries' strong alliance.
Our primary objective is to safely execute tactics between us and ROKAF F-35s to show our ironclad alliance here in South Korea.
Designed to evade radar detection, the F-35A has a top speed of Mach 1.8. South Korea currently has around 40 F-35As and plans to purchase around 20 of them more in the next few years, at a cost of almost $3 billion. The joint training comes amid heightened tensions, with North Korea showing signs of preparing for its first nuclear test in 5 years. This also appears to be in line with the agreement made by the South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol and U.S. President Joe Biden in their summit in May to deploy U.S. strategic military assets to the Korean Peninsula. Bae Eun-ji, Arirang News.
You're watching Dialogue This Week. South Korean drama Squid Game is up for 14 nominations at the upcoming Primetime Emmy Awards. With this, the dystopian Netflix series becomes the first South Korean drama to be nominated for America's biggest broadcasting industry honour. Now, the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences on Tuesday unveiled its full list of nominations for the 2022 awards, which includes Squid Game stars Lee Jung-jae and Jung Ho-yeon being nominated for Outstanding Lead Actor and Outstanding Supporting Actress in the drama series, and Oh Young-soo and Park Hae-soo also vying for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a drama series, while Squid Game director himself, Hwang Dong-yeol, also looks to win the Outstanding Directing and Writing for a drama series. So not only is Squid Game the first South Korean-made show to be included in the list of nominees, it's also the first non-English language series to vie for the television awards top honour at the Emmys. And we discuss the significance of this sweeping list of nominations for this Netflix series. And I'm joined by, I'm joined by Jae Seo, professor and filmmaker at the Seoul Institute of Arts, and Kim Young-un, professor of East Asian Studies at the East Asian Studies Department, at the University of California, Irvine. Very warm welcome to you both. And
nice to be here.
My first question to you, Professor Seo, very exciting news that we've heard over the past week. And well, Squid Game now, well, it's firstly the first non-English language series to be nominated for Outstanding Drama Series. So how big of a deal is this in the world of TV drama?
Well, it's a pretty big deal. The 74th Emmys is actually one of the four major, awards for the U.S. Entertainment industry. So it'd be basically the Grammy for music, Oscar for the Academy Awards for film, and then Tony for stage, and then Emmy for television series. So until this year, non-English projects have never been nominated, let alone won. So Squid Game is nominated for, I think, 14 nominations this year for, basically the outstanding achievement in drama and also individual achievements in drama as well. So as you said, Lee Jung-jae is also up for lead actor. So is Chung Ho-yeon for lead actress as well. So it's an unprecedented thing where a foreign non-English entity has done it. But because it's a big hit in Netflix, I think it got nominated.
Professor Kim, so looking at just this whole list of nominations, a total of 14 that Squid Game is up for, what was your reaction to this? I mean, how significant are all these nominations of Squid Game as a non-English drama?
Oh, I mean, I was totally surprised. As Professor Seo has mentioned, never before has a Korean, let alone, foreign language program or series have been nominated for the Emmys. Emmys is a pretty big deal. Koreans probably have never paid attention to this award because, again, it doesn't recognize the achievements or the performances of, series or programs that have been produced in any other language than English. So, I mean, it was a pretty big deal. I'm very glad that it has happened. 14 Emmy nominations is a lot. However, it's probably not uncommon. I think Succession, which is an HBO series, have garnered 45 nominations. And Severance, which is another Apple TV, sci-fi series, have garnered this year, same number nominations, 14. So it's not uncommon, but still a huge deal.
Oh, yeah. Big deal for a South Korean drama series. And Professor Seo, Lee Jung-jae, he's been nominated for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Drama Series, and his colleagues are also up for Outstanding Supporting Actress and Actor awards as well, and the director too is also in the running for an award. So how do you actually see the chances of them winning this year?
Oh, I think for Lee Jung-jae, I think he has a really good chance. He's up against a lot of really heavy hitters. He's in the outstanding lead actor in a drama series, and basically there's Jason Bateman for Ozark, Brian Cox and Jeremy Strong for Succession, Adam Scott for Severance, and Bob Odenkirk for Better Call Saul. But I think the other, I think Succession is the heavy hitter, as Professor Kim pointed out. But I think they've won so many Emmys before. I think it's time for, a non-American show to win, just as it did in the Oscars. And I think it's a really good opportunity. The Emmys as well has been also sort of criticized for not being inclusive enough for all the different, ethnicities in America. So I think they're going to make a point this year as well. And I hope that Squid Game gets to nab a lot of, wins for, the 14 nominations that they have. But I think it's going to be a real unprecedented thing. And they've already broken ground with winning the SAG Awards and many different awards. I think Yoon Suk-yeol won for the Golden Globe this year for, Best Supporting as well. So the Squid Game is just breaking boundaries left and right.
And Professor Kim, well, how has this been received in the US? I mean, which members of the cast have been particularly well received, and how do you see the chances of them actually scoring a win?
It's a good question. You know, like 3 years ago, right before the pandemic hit, I was asked, what are the chances of, Bong Joon-ho winning the big awards, right, at the Oscars, right before the pandemic hit. And when New York Times to NPR asked me this question, will Parasite win the Best Picture award? I said, there's absolutely no chance, right? And a couple of weeks later, I was just proven wrong. So you're asking probably the wrong person with this question. And I'm going to go on record, and I probably will have to say, that Squid Game probably has no chance of winning the Emmys, just to keep my streak going, maybe. So that people can actually bet on Squid Game,
Well, we wouldn't want to jinx it.
You're right, exactly. You get my point. So I think nominations, again, is a huge deal, as Professor So pointed out. I mean, it's like more, people's award, right? I mean, it's more of a, general entertainment kind of award rather than, a commercial award, achievement award. So it's a huge deal. I mean, it's, listen, just 20 years ago, it was really the major networks, right? That was in the running, for the Emmy Award, ABC, NBC, and CBS, and Fox. And now, it expanded to streaming contents, and now to, foreign language. And to have Squid Game representing that change or the transformation of entertainment industry, even in the U.S., I think it's a huge deal. I'm so honored that Korean, popular content is getting that recognition.
Right, certainly responding to the call for more inclusion in the US film industry as well. So very significant moment, not just for Koreans, but also the diversity of the population in America as well. And Professor Ho, now, while most of the spotlight has been on the actors themselves, other nominations, they include outstanding cinematography for single camera series, outstanding original main title theme music, and also for production design as well. So what made these elements of Squid Game really outstanding?
I think that's one of the greatest things about Squid Game is that, besides the interesting Hunger Games type of who gets to survive, I think if you watch the series, the art direction, for example, they made an incredible set. So they spent an enormous amount of budget for this, and it just became really special because nobody's seen anything like that before. And one of the things I like to point out is it's a series basically, but the director for the series is a film director, Hwang Dong-hyuk, who's actually made feature films for theatrical release. So this was actually, Squid Game was developed originally as a feature film, but nobody was able to fund it or think the themes were well, to be commercial enough to be launched in a cinema. But of course, he lucked out with Netflix basically green lighting his project. And he made this extravaganza, which took the world by storm. I think it's like something like 94 countries. It was the hit, and it just hit like a huge number of watch. It's still the world record for the most viewed Netflix series in the world. So I think, as you pointed out, there's not only just good acting, great story, but there's definitely good technique behind the success of Squid Game, and also that it was dubbed in 31 countries in terms of translation, also the dubbing. So I think these are all the elements that made it a success.
And Professor So, you mentioned the dubbing there and the translation process, and losing things in translation, that's always sort of an issue when it comes to taking one cultural content from a certain societal context and translating it to another. And well, do you think it was well done in terms of Squid Game?
Well, there's a lot of controversy behind the subtitling. For example, I think a couple of Korean American sort of TikTokers or YouTubers pointed out that the translation wasn't really, the English translation didn't really portray the excellent writing in the original. I personally think it wasn't that bad of a translation. But of course, there are cultural differences, hierarchies in Korea. Like when you address somebody older in Korean, there's a way you talk to that person. But to actually translate that, it's too much of a burden. So they didn't really go with that. So the cultural differences didn't really come through. But I think, when I first saw it, it wasn't that bad. And because Netflix got such bad flack, they got, basically they redid the subtitling. They had Sharon Cho was the translator for Bong Joon-ho during Parasite come and redo it. And, I really don't think it was that bad, but people pointed out, I actually have problems with the English dubbing. Some of it is a little weird. And then I think for the old man, they dubbed it with almost like a bad accented English thing. So for me, it wasn't that bad. But at the same time, if you translate something to that many countries, it's initially done in English and then translated to every other country. So you have to do the translation right. But I think for Squid Game, they were really under the microscope because it was such a big hit. They wanted everything to be perfect.
Right, and now we're hearing news about a second season. And Professor Kim, what can we expect from Squid Game Season 2? I mean, what are going to be the challenges of really engaging a global audience with a story that's quite quintessentially Korean, but also manages to resonate quite globally at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the biggest challenge for director, screenwriter Hang Dong-yeol at this point, and the people around it. Obviously, the biggest success that Netflix or the Squid Game had was the element of shock, through the violence, right? I mean, it's the children's game, yet there's such an element of, again, violence. And that was the biggest shock. But now that's exposed and revealed and disclosed, how to now present another kind of a shock element is going to be another big challenge. Will they introduce, more innovative games? Are there enough, children's game left in Korea to be played that poses this kind of, again, like intrigue and competition and a certain kind of, again, like, right, allegory for a cutthroat competition that capitalism has become. Those are the kind of things that, the Squid Game will try to tame, but, has to innovate at the same time. It's not easy. So I look forward to it, and I think, global audiences will look forward to it.
And Professor Seoul, well, the second series that's going to come out, what do you think that the makers are really going to have to preserve and also change to make it as big of a hit as it was the first time round?
Well, I think the series ended with a lot of loose ends. Basically, it's begging for a sequel. So you don't really know what the main character Lee Jung-jae is going to do because he's about to board an airplane and he's being told, don't go, just leave. And then he comes back, he turns around. So we're seeing him challenge the whole Squid Game, basically enterprise. So we want to see that. There are also big stars like Lee Byung-hun in it. He didn't have a really big role. I think there's ways to like really expand on his role, who's one of the masterminds behind Squid Game. So I think those are things. But again, I think with every sequel, Squid Game 1 is such a huge hit. It's like trying to reinvent the lightning in a bottle situation. So Hwang Dong-yeol has a huge burden on his hands. But in the last interviews I've seen him, he seems to have already come up with new games for Squid Game 2. He likes the stories that are coming up. The scale's going to be bigger. So I hope, like all sequels, there's such a huge expectation that it's really hard to match the original success. But I hope that Squid Game 2 also, brings together basically all the elements of Squid Game 1 with kind of a new perspective. I think everybody wants to see something. I think the way to say it is you want the same thing, but kind of different. So I think if they do a job like that, I think it's going to be very successful.
Well, a lot of pressure for the producers there, but that was Choi Seoul, professor and filmmaker of Seoul Institute of the Arts, and Kim Kyung-yeon, professor of East Asian Studies at University of California, Irvine. Thank you both so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
aespa is becoming the music scene's latest sensation, setting a new record in album sales. According to South Korea's Circle chart on Thursday, the band's new extended play Girls sold over 1.4 million copies within the first week of its release. No other K-pop girl group has achieved such a feat. The previous first week sales record was held by Blackpink, who sold close to 700,000 copies of their album in 2020. But aespa, who actually debuted that year, is quickly rising to international stardom and even performed at Coachella this year. Another huge Korean language hit show on Netflix. The drama series Extraordinary Attorney Woo is now its most watched non-English language show. In the 2 weeks since release, total views came to more than 23.9 million. The series tells the story of a young attorney with Asperger's syndrome who joins a major law firm because it's so popular. The company that produced the show is reportedly getting calls from global production companies interested in doing a remake.
One of the biggest events in South Korea for the automotive industry begins Friday. This year's edition of the Busan Motor Show features unveiling of brand new models, concept cars, and a virtual experience of an air taxi. Choi Min-jung takes us to the Busan International Motor Show.
If you want to check out the latest car models before anyone else, the Busan International Motor Show 2022 is the place to be. The 10-day event begins on Friday at the Busan Exhibition and Convention Center in South Korea's port city of Busan under the theme Next Mobility, a celebration.
Next mobility means future mobility. As you may have noticed, most of the vehicles displayed here are electric. We also wanted the public to enjoy themselves as if they were at a festival, because the show is being held for the first time in 4 years due to the pandemic.
120 companies from 8 countries are at this year's event. You can find domestic brands from Hyundai Motors, Kia, and Genesis, as well as foreign brands including BMW, Mini, and Rolls-Royce. So what are some models to look out for in 2022? Hyundai Motor is revealing its latest electric vehicle, the Ioniq 6, for the very first time for people to see in person. The electric sedan is set to be released this September.
The Ioniq 6 offers customers not only a new mobility experience, but also a unique experience based on an eco-friendly lifestyle.
Kia is debuting a compact SUV, the all-new Centaurus, with a bold design and high-tech features.
We believe the most natural solutions will take precedence over the amount of technology. This is also reflected in the interior of the new Kia Centaurus, so that consumers can use new technologies intuitively, comfortably, and naturally.
Both Hyundai Motors and Kia are showcasing electric concept vehicles that were both unveiled for the first time at the 2021 LA Auto Show. Hyundai's Ioniq Concept 7 and Kia's EV9 drew attention given the lack of electric SUVs in the market. But the show is not just about cars. People can also see and experience what the next generation of mobility might look like. SK Telecom is providing a virtual experience of what it would feel like to ride an air taxi. The company has been playing an active role in the country's urban air mobility industry with aims to commercialize air taxis by 2025. As the theme suggests, the auto show is a platform for people to enjoy. People can test drive cars, from the luxurious new Genesis to racing cars, and end the tour with some beer afterward. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News, Busan.
For a look at news from around the world, we now turn to our Matthew Ashley standing by at the Arirang newsroom. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning to you guys.
Let's begin with updates from Sri Lanka, as it's been reported that the president who fled the country earlier this week has now resigned.
Well, that's right. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa gave notice of his resignation in an email sent to Sri Lanka's parliamentary speaker. Now, sources say the email was sent moments after Rajapaksa landed in Singapore on Thursday. This follows the president previously fleeing the Maldives amid anti-government protests in Sri Lanka. It's believed he left Sri Lanka in an attempt to avoid possible arrest under a new administration. According to the Speaker's office, if the legality of the email is verified, an announcement will be made on Friday morning local time. News of his resignation has delighted demonstrators, with many dancing in the streets. Meanwhile, Singapore has said that Rajapaksa was allowed to enter the country on a, quote, private visit and has not requested asylum. Now, Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi has offered up his resignation after the largest party in Italy's coalition government withdrew its support. The resignation offer came on Thursday after Five Star boycotted a vote on the government's economic package. The Populist Party claimed Draghi's measures didn't do enough to tackle living costs. Although Draghi's vote passed comfortably, he had previously insisted that the coalition would not continue without support from Five Star. However, Italian President Sergio Mattarella rejected the PM's resignation, requesting that he stay and address the parliament. Meanwhile, the former leader of Five Star, Luigi Di Maio, accused the party of trying to bring down the government to bring back its own support. Now, gang violence in the Haitian capital of Port-au-Prince has seen a reported 89 people killed in the span of a week. Over 100 others have been injured. This comes as two gangs, G9 and G-PEP, are fighting over the control of the impoverished neighborhood of Cité Soleil. A report published by a local human rights group said on Wednesday that of those killed, 47 were identified as gang members, while the remaining 42 were civilians caught in the crossfire. According to Doctors Without Borders, the violence has cut off access to food, water and fuel for thousands of residents, and the streets are lined with dozens of burnt corpses. Gang violence in Haiti has surged since the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse last year. After more than a century, a hidden self-portrait by Vincent van Gogh has been discovered behind one of his paintings. The portrait was found last week on Friday when art conservators took an X-ray of Van Gogh's 1885 Head of a Peasant Woman. According to experts, the portrait has been unknown to the art world until now. It was covered by layers of glue and cardboard, as Van Gogh frequently reused canvases to save money. The portrait depicts a bearded man in a brimmed hat with a neckerchief loosely tied at the throat. In our final story, thousands of troops from France and its allies in Central and Eastern Europe marched down the Champs-Élysées Avenue in Paris on Thursday as France celebrated Bastille Day. The parade featured warplanes, military vehicles and a drone performance to put on France's military might on display while voicing support for Ukraine. Troops from NATO members such as Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania and Poland led the parade bearing their national flags. Abnormally high temperatures did nothing to stop crowds from watching the display in the French capital.
Good morning. Blistering heat waves engulf southern parts of the country with heat alerts in place across the region. And Daegu and Gyeongsang in Gyeongsang-Pukto province are under a heat wave warning with an expected high of near 35 degrees Celsius there. But it's going to be relatively bearable in the capital region today. It's going to be fairly sunny all day with strong UV rays, though there is a chance of sudden rain, so please keep an umbrella handy. For now, Seoul looks to see rain around the mid-afternoon. Meanwhile, Jeju Island will see heavy rain of up to 80 millimeters throughout the day today. Now, most regions were free from a tropical night except on parts of Jeju Island. Then highs will be similar to yesterday, and those in southern regions need to really take good care of themselves against the heat. Now, heat in south should subside a bit next week with frequent monsoon rain in the forecast. Meanwhile, tomorrow is Chobok when the scorching heat sets in and stays for about a month. With that, here's a look at the weather conditions around the globe.
That wraps up our newscast for this hour. Happy Friday, and we'll be back with you next week for our Monday's edition of New Day at Arirang.
Thanks for joining us this morning, and do stick around for more updates throughout the day. Have a great rest of your day wherever you are, and as always, take care.